Right. So what we discussed in the previous session about the process of the business architecture part, right? So business architecture, we're understanding about goal and vision of the product. At the same time, we discussed about what strategies we implement. I think I have taken some example in the last session when we are transforming the business to the next level. So whatever is required, right? To what extent it must solve the future needs, right? So that part and all of the thing is what something we have discussed in the previous session. Now, when I'm going to discuss about the translation part, because whatever the solution we usually develop, initially it will be started with the business needs, what we have. So based upon the business needs, what we have identified, that has to be translated into the technical solution. That's what we have to be performed with. But if you want to transform this into the perspective of the technical solution, this is where generally two things will be comes into picture. Earlier also I told you. One is about the business requirements, what we have. So followed by this, the kind of non-functional requirements, whatever we are having. So when we are trying to understand about business requirements or non-functional requirements from the context of point of sale system, because that was the example we have taken. Business requirements majorly focusing on the functional aspects, like a biller is performing billing activity, or else an inventory professional updating the inventory records in the inventory system, or it can be tracking down the inventory status, all that, or else it can be customer relationship management and how we are identifying the queries of the customers which was raised by them. These are all comes under the business requirements. Now, when it comes to the non-functional requirements, as I stated, majorly focusing on the behavior and as well as the characteristics of a particular application, right? So how it should behave and how this characteristics of a particular functional particular application or the functional requirements. This is where we call it as non-functional stands for. It can be scalability, it can be performance, it can be load balancing, it can be fault tolerance. So this aspect we need to consider. By considering the future requirements and all everything is something we need to know. So when we want to understand when there is a process of translation from business needs to the technical solution, in this juncture, especially being a solution architect, we need to understand the perspective of architecture, because there are different architectural perspectives we have. Generally, these architectural perspectives usually will be categorized into 4 different parts. So the first one, do you want to make a notes out of it? Do you want me to tell it slowly, or will you be writing in general? Which one do you prefer, Aishwarya and Ramakrishna?
Sorry, can you please come again?
Because I'm going to explain some architectural perspectives, all that. Do you want me to make it slow so that you can write a notes out of it, or can I go in my own pace?
I mean, I'm okay to I'm able to make notes. I mean, at this
Okay.
pace also.
Ramakrishna, yourself.
Okay.
Okay. Right.
One minute. I'll take notes.
Right. So architectural perspectives is what something you need to know. Right. So as the part of translating business needs into technical solution, because business needs, from the business needs, we need to transform this into a business solution. Okay. Business solution will be translated into technical solution. Understand? Business need is first. Last time also I discussed with you. From the business need, we need to transform it into a business solution. From that business solution, we need to transform this to the technical solution. Now, when there is a transformation of business solution to the technical solution, Solution architects should have an idea about the architectural perspectives. Okay, so architectural perspectives, the first one is called business perspective. First one is called business perspective. This majorly focuses on, you can make a note of it, right? So this majorly focuses on the business activities of the individuals. This majorly focuses on the business activities of the individuals, and the process happens in an enterprise. And the process happens in an enterprise. This is where general business perspectiveness, being a solution architect, we must be knowing, because the solution we are about to develop, or the identification of the business solution which was identified by the business team, is something an integral part of the business activity individuals within the organization is doing. Let's say that we are developing a point of sale system. This point of sale system is using by multiple people, depends on the kind of role they are playing. Because a billing person is using point of sale system for billing purposes. The same point of sale system is being used by a store manager to generate reports by understanding the actual how much billing was done so far, right? So how much sales happened, all that. The same thing will be used even by in inventory people, so that they will be knowing about the status of the inventory which was left over. The same POS mission will be used even by HR professionals to see the login of log details of the employees, whoever is accessing the system. So whenever we try to provide the solution, first of all, we need to understand the business perspective. So this business perspective majorly focusing on the individual business activities which people are performing, followed by this, whatever the process of the enterprises, which are something innate to that. So the second one about application perspective. Second one about application perspective. Application perspective majorly represents the type and as well as kind of applications, the type and as well as the kind of applications, as well as tools, which will be used within the organization. Right? So these application perspective, again, we can categorize it into two things. So one is COTS based, second is about customized. Okay. So what is COTS based? COTS based nothing but commercial off-the-shelf systems. This is what generally COTS products are. Let's say there are products which are already using by the customers, products. Let's say, for example, if you have taken a core banking application, right? So there is a product called Finacle. So this is a product which is used by the core banking. It's a core banking product used by the banks for the back-end operations. Generally, this Finacle is something which was developed by Infosys Corporation. So they developed a product called COTS. They developed a product called Finacle. So if a bank or a financial institution wants to manage their back-end operations, and if they want to use core banking, so the first thing is what they can do, they can buy a product. They can buy a product which is existing in the market. Either it can be Finacle or it can be anything. Okay. These are all, we call it as whatever the products customer is hiring or purchasing from outside. Those we call it as COTS products. COTS, C-O-T-S, you can write down. So COTS products, which stands for commercial off-the-shelf systems. Commercial off-the-shelf systems. This is what we call it as COTS stands for. Means these are products where customers are buying. Second type of product was customized ones. Means we are developing, being a vendor, we are developing an application on our own, right? There is no product as such. Based on the business requirements, we are developing whatever we are discussing now about that category. So whenever we try to understand the perspective of the application perspectiveness, we need to understand what type of products or the projects they are using within the organization, because some projects were on premise, which exactly as per their requirement they can make a vendor to develop it, or else some products they hire or they purchase it from the market. Because if you are purchasing this from the market, when you are comparing this from the application development for the scratch, which will be less cheaper to them. Because let's say I have a product, right? I have a product wherein I can give it for a competitive cost. At the same time, if customer is coming to me and is asking me to develop the project from the scratch, so automatically the amount of effort which I am making to provide a solution for a particular customer will be expensive, right? Because I cannot get it for I cannot develop this project with a limited cost. So usually customized applications and all everything will be expensive, because for a particular customer we are developing the application, and this application is not something designing and developing for other customers. Only for a particular customer we are providing services. The amount of effort we are making and all everything is something relating to that stuff. So when we are trying to understand about application perspective, being a solution architect, in what way the kind of solution are we going to develop will be an integral part of the business. This is where business perspective we will be seeing. Now, when it comes to the application perspective and all, in what way it was integrated or interrelated, this is where generally we have to see. The third one is about data perspective. Please make a note. Third one is about data perspective, which majorly focuses on, please make a note, which majorly focuses on the enterprise data elements, which majorly focuses on the enterprise data elements, storage mechanism, policies, data flow across enterprise, followed by partners and customers. Okay, so this is where we call it as data perspective. Means the type of data what customer is using, the amount of data, the type of data, whatever they were using on. So we need to understand about the kind of data elements what they were using here. It's not only about the data elements, it's also discuss about the storage mechanism, because how and where the data is being stored. Again, the storage mechanism depends on two things. One is about an on-premise application, the data storage mechanism is something different, because as it is an on-premise application, storage procedure as well as the infrastructure of firewalls and all everything will be on-premise. If it's a cloud application, then based upon the kind of services we have taken from the customer, either it can be infrastructure services or it can be platform or software services. Infrastructure services means whatever the firewalls, routers, right? So whatever we are using, this is all something comes under infrastructure services. So infrastructure, because this data storage mechanism and all everything will be taken comes under the infrastructure as a service point of view. So we need to consider, as far as the data perspective itself is concerned, we need to understand about the kind of data elements, what is that we are going to use. It's not only about the data elements. It is also excuse me, it is also about the storage mechanism or the procedure, whatever we are going to follow. At the same time, it is also focused on the policies as well, because policies, rules and regulations and all, everything will be varied. Because if you remember last time I told you, as an example of healthcare projects, I mentioned you in the beginning time, if you remember, right? So let's say, for example, when we are going to manage the healthcare data or when we are working on the healthcare data, there are some rules and regulations which were defined, which is normally we call it as HIPAA rules.
HIPAA rules. Yeah.
Right? So HIPAA means health information of an individual which must be protected and encrypted. So either it is from the user perspective, or being a solution provider, when we are going to develop a solution for a particular problem which customer is using, the kind of standards, what policies and procedures which we have to be abide with, not avoid with, abide with. Abide with is important, okay? Because we have to abide with the policies, procedures, standards, rules and regulations, regulatory compliances and all. So these aspects also we need to understand in reference to the data part I'm talking about. As I told you, because last time, right? So because business data, customer data, patient's data is highly sensitive, that information should not be given outside for whatsoever reason. So hence, whatever the data transformation we do, because this is all something we are talking about the flow of data, right? So when it comes to the data transformation and all, everything will happens through the code numbers, right? So through encrypted format, the different code numbers will be used, like 834, 835, etc. Through different codes, this transformations and all, everything we do. So understanding about the policies and procedures is also something, one of the key and prominent element we have to be focused more on. Next one, about the data flow across enterprises, means whatever the data we are the data that is being processed over a period of time. Either it can be a customer data, because a customer is coming to a shop where against to the product we have, right? So we are doing billing, right? So the data flow can be a customer data. It can be a product data, right? Whatever the inventory we are managing and all, the quantity of the products, what we have, all that. This data can be employee data. This can be this data can be the log details of an employees. So how this data flow process happens within the enterprise is what something we have to understand. This is where generally data flow across enterprises and all, everything is all something comes under that. Not only that, we must be knowing about the partners and as well as the customers as well, right? So who are the partners, right? So who are the customers? That also we need to understand. So when we are working on application development, especially in context to the solution, being a solution architect in a stage of transforming from business solutions to the technical solution, we need to understand the data perspective. So how the data flows from one extent to another extent. In this process, what kind of systems, this is something, these applications are the systems we were using to transform the data are useful while we are transforming the data, or the whole application is what something comes at a data perspective. After that, when we talk about that, next one about technology perspective. Technology perspective can nothing but infrastructure, I can say, right? So what kind of infrastructure are we using? Whether it can be firewalls, it can be networking, right? So it can be hardware and software, it can be security, it can be a gateway, either it can be payment gateway or something like that. So gateway. So these are all something comes under technology perspective. So these are the four perspectives. Being a solution architect, we have to be very clear when we are going to develop a technical solution for any of the customer requirements. Is it clear? Is it clear to both of you?
Yes.
Yes.
Right. So,
Yeah.
yeah, right. This is where generally we need to understand, right? So business perspective, we need to understand. Application perspective, we need to understand. Data perspective, we need to understand. At the same time, technology perspective, we need to understand. The reason why, whenever we are talking about the business perspective, this is where, let me highlight it. Right. So whenever we are talking about this business perspective and all, this is where generally the focus of strategy will be taken into consideration. So why we are focusing more on the strategy? Because this is something relating to the business perspective of the application, what is that we are going to develop. Because whenever we are developing an enterprise architecture for a particular application, as it has 4 layers, right? So as I told you in the beginning, right? Business architecture, application systems, and as well as data architecture and all. So whereas this enterprise architecture majorly focusing on the enterprise elements, as well as business architects majorly focusing on goal, vision, strategy, all that. The reason why strategy focus is something we have to be focused more on. This is the first one. Now, when it comes to the focus of the technology, because strategy we have to consider, because if you have not identified what strategy customer is expecting us to develop or what strategy they want to use, what the strategy they want to execute finally. If the application is not performing or equalizing with strategy, then there will be no value for the solution we have developed because there will be no return of investment for the customer. So hence, even the project was completed, it is considered as solution is considered as a failure. So strategy focus is one of the key element we have to be focused on. So after strategy focus, the next is technology focus. So the reason why, whenever we are talking about this technology focus, the reason I told you about application perspective and technology perspective, because the what kind of applications we are using, either it can be COTS products or it can be an customized application we are developing. At the same time, the kind of infrastructure, whatever are we going to use, all these things are comes under the technology focus. So strategy focus is one thing which we have to be known with. So apart from that strategy focus, we have to be focused on the technology also. Technology doesn't mean that to have a knowledge over coding and all, because anyway people whoever come for solution architect will come from the coding background, right? So anyway they are coming from the application background. So this code review and all everything will be done by application architects, all that. So those people will do that, right? These people will be there, right? This application architects and all everything will do the code review, all that, right? So hence you are not something related because you are not the one who is going to do the code review. For every code review and all everything, application architects will take care of. But when it comes to the focus perspective of solution architect, we have to be focused on the strategy perspective. At the same time, we have to be focused on the technology perspective. Now, when it comes to the business requirements point of view, as I stated earlier, this business requirements or business enterprise architecture domain, this is where generally we have to be focused on. Now, when you want to develop the kind of solution we are going to develop for the project, as far as the non-functional requirements itself is concerned, this is where generally we need to understand the platform, because what kind of platform are we going to develop for an application, right? So this is where generally some solution roles, because last time also I told you solution, enterprise solution, some application solution architects separate, platform solution architects separate, infrastructure solution architects separate. All these three are solution architects. But application solution architect means who is going to develop solution for a particular application, which is in the context of business logic, non-functional, etc. All that. Next, platform solution architecture. Platform solution architecture majorly focusing on the platform of the application we are using. Let's say we are using a DevOps platform to develop the project, right? So when we are developing a DevOps environment, there can be some Kubernetes or OpenShift. Different tools are being used under the DevOps platform. This is where generally platform architecture and all everything come into picture. Okay, because from the architectural domain point of view, if you understand, platform architecture or platform architects will be there, because we are developing a platform to construct the application. So nowadays, of course, the example I can give you is DevOps, because DevOps platform is what something we are transforming now and we are using even. So this is where generally platform architecture come into picture. Next, application architecture, because application architecture majorly focusing on the type of applications we are developing. Again, it's depends on the kind of application we are developing. Either it can be web applications, or it can be client server applications, or it can be distributed remote applications, or else it can be an enterprise applications and all. So the type of application to application, whatever are we developing, so the architecture we are going to develop may vary sometimes, because let's say, for example, there will be some standalone applications where all the three layers of the application are developing under the single platform. You can see Excel, right? So all these are comes under the standalone applications, which we are using for a very long time. Of course, not now, earlier I'm talking. After that, even client server applications we used to work on. After that, we used to work on distributed applications, something like RMA, Corba, all that. Next, we have transformed to enterprise applications where this J2E and all everything we're using here. So application architecture, we need to see what kind of applications and what sort of applications we are using here. This is where generally application architect or application architecture come into existence. Next, integration. Integration majorly focusing on two things. One is about hardware and second is software. Means how the hardware and software integration we are making. But this integration is something we see when we are developing an on-premise application. If it's a cloud-based application and all everything, there is no integration as separate, because the kind of services we have chosen from the cloud service provider, whatever the required integration and all everything will be done by them as separate, right? So that hence you don't require to develop this integrations and all everything as separate. You don't need it, because it depends on the kind of services we are hiring from the cloud service provider. Either it can be infrastructure as a service, or it can be platform or a software services and all that. This integrations and all everything will be done and it will be customized, depends on the kind of services we have taken. But it's a public cloud we are using, then we don't get the service, because that's not a premium service anymore. But it's a private cloud, then yes, because private cloud services means cloud service provider will exclusively design a space for us to develop the solution, and they will appoint a cloud architect who develop cloud architecture for our application or the solution. This is where generally this integration architecture and all everything come into picture. Third one about network architect. Network architect means people who develop the networking for the project, right? So networking of the application, where application can be integrated with different work systems in different parts of the location, that so that networking is something we have to be focused on. Next, infrastructure. Infrastructure, it can be everything, right? So because sometime like I told you, technology focus or technology perspective, this is where infrastructure architect come into picture, right? So what kind of infrastructure we are using? Again, this infrastructure, if it's an on-premise infrastructure, we'll be hiring infrastructure architect as separate to perform this. If it was a cloud architecture and all, based upon the services we are taking, something like EC2, right? So because in AWS we have an EC2 all that, right? So EC2 all that are there. There we will be using this networking infrastructure as well as security, right? So storage, right? All these things will be taken into consideration. This is where this infrastructure architecture will be used. This infrastructure architecture majorly focusing on AWS point of view when we are developing a solution from the cloud side, because infrastructure as a services will be given by the AWS people alone for us. Next is security architect, means how you are going to develop security for the project, or how you are going to develop security for an application. This is where generally security architecture come into picture. So when we are going to develop a technical solution for a customer requirements, being a solution architect, by considering business requirements, by considering the non-functional requirements and all that. So we need to consider, because of course there will be different roles as an architects and all. So platform architects will provide what platform are we going to used to develop the application will be considered, the kind of applications which we are using in regular words, the type of application it can be, either it can be web application, cloud server, or etc. All that. Next, integration will also be taken into consideration. So how are we integrating among the applications as well as the systems we are using, all this. Next, network architecture, network diagrams and all, everything we will be prepared in this. Next, infrastructure architecture, how this hardware and software infrastructure followed by the firewalls, routers, right? So all this will be taken into consideration. And how this security architecture means, what kind of security tools and how this security are we providing for a particular project, that's all comes under security architecture point of view. So by considering all these into consideration, being a solution architect, we develop a solution for any of the business problem. Clear? Is it clear, Aishwarya and Ramakrishna?
Yes.
Is it clear,
Yes.
Ramakrishna?
Yes.
Okay, right. Okay, Aishwarya. Okay, right. So this is where generally this solution architect and how we are translating this solution architecture is what it was. Now, if you want to develop solution architecture and all, first of all, we must be having an idea over high level designs and low level designs. First of all, this is what something we have to be known, because whatever comes under high level, because in the beginning session, I told you there's a difference between high level and low level designs and all. How to create high level designs is what first thing you need to learn, that is practically, underline this point. Practically, you need to know how to create high level designs for the project. So once based on the high level designs and all, how to create low level designs, we have to learn. First of all, that is beginning. Because unless until you don't have an idea about high level design and low level design, application development, solution architecture won't be possible. Because we need to know what are all the business as activities or the features we are taken into consideration, as well as the kind of features which are involved in it, right? So what are the different functionalities we are developing internally, the code level, right? So this is all something required. So we need to know about high level designs first, because high level designs will be developed and how should it looks like. At the same time, we must be knowing about low level designs also, how to design these low levels, because being into systems architecture point of view, it's not something relating to solution architecture. From systems architect role point of view, these high level designs and low level designs will be prepared in that note, because we never know, right? So because when you have applied for solution architect role, there are possibilities where we must have a clear understanding over the high level designs and low level designs. Let us start from high level designs and low level designs. First of all, that is the beginning of the architecture when we want to develop application architecture or systems architecture or solutions and all. Prior to that, first of all, we should have an understanding from practical perspective about high level designs and low level designs, which I'm going to discuss from in tomorrow's session, right? What is high level, low level designs and how to create high levels and low level designs for the project. We start from there. From there, we will end it with solution architecture. Is it clear, Aishwarya and
Yeah.
Ramakrishna?
Yes. Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah. Clear.
Right. So tomorrow I'm going to discuss about high level design and low level design and how to create high level designs and low level designs. That I'll be
Oh.
explaining practically, because that's the beginning. That's the beginning for the practice session.
Okay.
Because you need to understand the high level design first, followed by high level design, low level design. Because this
Okay.
low level design developer will be taken, because being a development team, what is that the parameter you are developing for a project for a code is low level design. Based on the low level design only, you write code for the application, what based on the business functionalities, what we have to implement for the functionalities and all everything. Usually we do that. But prior to low level design, first of all, we need to understand high level design, that I am going to discuss tomorrow. HLD and LLD, high level design and low level design. Clear,
Okay.
Aishwarya and Ramakrishna?
Yeah.
Yes.
Do we use any frameworks for that?
Yes. We use frameworks. I'll tell you.
Okay.
Tools.
Okay.
It's not framework. Tools will be used. I will
Tools,
show you
okay.
the tools to you. Because the practical approach, I have to provide you using tools only. There are
Okay.
some open source tools also. I will be showing it tomorrow. Some open source
Okay,
tools
sir.
are also available that we'll see.
Okay, sir. Okay.
Clear?
Yeah.
So and
Okay.
let's connect
Thank
at 9:30 tomorrow, same time. Is it better? Is it fine to you? 9:30?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. 9:30 we connect.
Yeah, sure. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Sure. Okay. Thank you, sir.